After weeks of extreme fear in the crypto markets, we are finally seeing a bounce in crypto. This is for Bitcoin. It's also for altcoins. Ethereum is actually leading the way in terms of percentage gains, and it's actually outperforming Bitcoin. But the question we all have now is, can we actually trust this rally? We're going to take a look at what it looks like for crypto in the upcoming days and weeks to come. So if you are new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with crypto, best way to do so is hitting that like button and subscribe. And of course, thank you guys for the continued support. And let's talk about crypto. If I take you back to October 6th, Bitcoin is at $126,000. You probably think that that has been years and years, but it's actually only been a little less than 2 months. It's crazy how fast things move in the crypto markets. And nonetheless, if we take a look at where we've been in terms of sentiment over the span of these last 2 months, we're taking a look at your fear and greed index when Bitcoin was at all-time highs. We had a fear and greed index of roughly 62, which was in the greed level. But ever since that point in time, it's been a dwindling effect, bearishness everywhere on, crypto Twitter, on social media, whatever the case may be. And over the last few weeks, the last 2 weeks per se, we've been in extreme fear, hitting a new low for the year of 10 on the fear and greed index. And over the last, few days, as Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets have rallied, we are now setting ourselves in the fear category, but still in 27 because right around 27 because people are still unsure whether or not this is a relief rally or whether or not it's going to continue in the weeks and months to come. Now, if you also look at what else is happening in terms of social interest in the space right now, despite Bitcoin being at all-time highs to now, complete bearishness in the markets, to now seeing a relief rally, well, interest on Bitcoin isn't doing a whole lot. If you look at it over the last 20 years, we're not seeing, a euphoric peak for Bitcoin. We're not seeing a bear market for Bitcoin right now in terms of interest. What you are seeing is pretty much a flat line, which to me says that people aren't super interested in it right now. Likely because it's gone from 126,000 all the way to 80,000. People have, just kind of dismissed it over the last few weeks, because if you look in 2017, you have the peak interest. In 2021, again, peak interest, and we have not really seen a peak interest, peak searches for Bitcoin at this time. And that is another reason why sentiment has been so bad, in my opinion. But over the last few days, there have been a lot of crypto adoption. And just recently, there was an interview with Larry Fink, the CEO of, BlackRock, the $12 trillion asset manager fund, as well as Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase. They were basically talking about Bitcoin. And as we all know, back in 2017, Larry Fink was actually bearish against Bitcoin. He said it was for criminals and so on and so forth, and that, Bitcoin just wasn't it back in 2017. And if you fast forward 8 years from then, he's now switched his complete view and he's very bullish on Bitcoin now. So it just goes to show that we are so into the crypto markets. You're looking at a day-to-day chart. You're looking at, a minute chart, 4-hour chart, and we're so into what's happening on the day-to-day that we're not necessarily looking in the broader sense of crypto adoption, because crypto adoption is literally happening before our eyes. You're seeing these asset managers come in with crypto just over the last 48 hours. Vanguard has opened crypto ETFs to their people, and that crypto adoption is just going to continue getting bigger and bigger. Now, if we take a look at another thing that BlackRock said, they say that the U.S. national debt will accelerate crypto adoption. We know that Trump's administration is a pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto, and we know that they are planning to be the crypto capital of the world. So it kind of makes sense that if ever, they do decide to do anything with crypto regarding their debt, that is likely going to also propulse crypto upwards. Now, of course, the question we all have is what is going to happen to Bitcoin and to altcoins right now? Is this just a relief rally, or are we actually going to get sustenance to continue going upwards in the month of December and into 2026? That's really the main question that we all have. So if we take a look at our charts, you have to be looking at Bitcoin first and foremost. In my opinion, and I've been saying this for the past, few weeks, as we've lost support on that 50-week moving average, which right now stands at $102,000, I was of the opinion that as soon as this happened, which, happened back in early November when sentiment was absolutely disgusting, bearishness everywhere, there was going to be a point in time where we were going to find a local bottom. Now, local bottom was right around $80,000. And at that point, it's now been about 2 weeks or a week and a half of green candles. And I do sincerely believe that Bitcoin's price is going to head back to that 50-week moving average. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, if you look at the previous bull market cycle, you can absolutely see that once we broke that 50-week moving average, we went back to test the 50-week moving average as resistance, tried to turn it into support on this candle here, weren't able to, and that was the onset of the bear market. So again, I do believe that that is going to be the ultimate test for Bitcoin. And I'm going to get into a little bit more reasonings as to why it could actually continue pushing upwards later this month and into 2026. But for now, I think that we are still just looking at Bitcoin having a relief rally. It's very, improbable that Bitcoin goes from $126,000 for, the better part of 2 months, goes straight down 36% without having any sort of bounce along the way. And this is the bounce that we are currently seeing. Whether or not this is a bull trap, I cannot confirm that just yet. But what I can understand is that we are currently seeing a rally, and I would expect that rally to go all the way up to that 50-week moving average in due time. It doesn't have to happen overnight. It doesn't have to happen in the next week, but it likely is going to happen. And right now, that 100-week moving average is acting as support. So keep that in mind and keep looking at Bitcoin's chart. Now, the next thing, if you look at total cryptocurrency market cap, it's actually quite interesting where we are right now, because in 2021, we reached a total market cap of roughly $3 trillion at the euphoric stage of 2021. And if you look at where we've been over these last few weeks, even though, it's been complete fear, complete bearishness, we've basically come back to that range of, $2.75 trillion to $3 trillion, essentially the 2021 all-time high for crypto total market cap. We're back here. We found that range as support, and we've bounced upwards from here. So again, I'm looking at the total crypto market cap right now, and it is looking relatively healthy if we are comparing what's happening to some support levels on that front. Now, of course, it is too early to tell, in my opinion, whether or not Bitcoin is going to continue flying through December, flying into 2026. Like a lot of people are saying that's going to happen, I do think you have to let time dictate what is going to happen. Of course, you can look at the upcoming bullish events. QT just ended. The federal balance sheet is eventually going to start going up. We have not yet seen that. Last time QT ended, which is, back in 2019, it took about a month to really see that balance sheet go up and for the Fed to start injecting money into the markets. Now, there are a ton of different narratives out there that the Fed is using other means of injecting liquidity in the markets, which is true. And they also have the FOMC meeting happening on December 10th, which by now is less than a week away. And at this time, they plan on cutting 0.25 basis points, which is going to eventually help the economy as well. So liquidity conditions are going to get better, but I do think that looking at Bitcoin's charts, you're going to have a tell-all situation when Bitcoin gets closer to that $102,000 case. where it's going to decide what it wants to do next. Now, I've been having this view for the better part of the last few weeks, as I've said, and I've posted this in our premium Discord. So if you guys want to stay up to date with what I think, what I'm doing in the crypto markets, what I'm buying, what I'm selling, and have the research and analysis and alpha that I bring to you guys, there is a premium Discord. It's the first link in the description below. And we did post this on November 24th. Thinking, of course, that there was going to be a good chance for a relief rally into December, listing out some of the thoughts that I had as to why this was going to happen, and also looking at some of the large caps that could be a good reverse trade back then because of my thoughts on Bitcoin. And of course, I thought Bitcoin was going to have a relief rally. So the example I gave in this case was looking at a coin like Sui, which was right around $1.50. I said, you know what? If you are looking and have the same views as me, well, Sui is a coin that I would be looking at. Of course, just giving one example of a large cap, it was sitting at $1.50, and I do believe that now it is a little higher. But of course, having the invalidation criteria that if Bitcoin rolls over, Sui is likely going to roll over. But to understand these different outlooks and to understand the macro aspect of it before really getting into specific traits. So if we take a look at Sui, for example, right now, it has reversed perfectly as we had thought because, of course, Bitcoin did reverse too. So Sui up to $1.70 from $1.50, still not a bad trade. But ultimately speaking, if we're looking at the broader sense of altcoins, and what I am specifically doing right now is I'm getting in and out of plays as I still believe there is upside to Bitcoin all the way to that 50-week moving average. And after that, we're going to have to wait and see. So altcoins right now for me, although they're going up and Ethereum is actually outperforming Bitcoin, but I am staying hesitant for now. That doesn't mean I'm not making plays. We've been continuing to do so in our Discord. But if you look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin, I wanted to share this chart here because ETH Bitcoin is actually seeing some sort of a reversal right now, and it's been a long time since we've seen this. So if we take a look at ETH Bitcoin, which ultimately speaking, we all know that liquidity starts with Bitcoin, goes into Ethereum, goes to large caps, and finally it goes to those small caps, which of course we haven't seen move just yet. We've had glimpses of altcoin season, different narratives going off at different times, but we have not yet seen that massive altcoin season. But if you look at Ethereum, what's the good thing about this is that ever since April, when we had the capitulation on ETH, we've been making higher lows. So as we can see, we are moving slowly but surely in the upward direction for ETH Bitcoin, which is definitely a good thing because over the last, 2 months, it's been an absolute brutal, slow, painful, time for Ethereum. It's actually been 3 months for Ethereum since the mid-August when ETH reached all-time highs to, the low of mid-November. We've been in this trend for that time, and this is what has led to this massive sentiment switch on Bitcoin, on altcoins, and of course on Ethereum. But we are seeing over the last few weeks, a bit of a reversal, and that may signal another higher low for Ethereum, which ultimately speaking is great for altcoins because, of course, Ethereum goes up, it's going to bring liquidity to Ethereum, which is eventually going to trickle down to smaller altcoins. I don't think we're there just yet, but this is a great time to be looking at your other alts. If you're looking at, let's say, Solana has bounced very well from some of its, support levels. $120-ish is a level that has been support before, broke below, back in March, but ultimately speaking, held it yet again in November, and we are now back about to $144. If you look at AVAX is a little bit trickier because it actually went lower than some of the lows it recently had over the last year. So AVAX not showing as much strength as Solana, but still bouncing up quite well from, the $12.50 low that it just had last few weeks. If you look at coins like Link, Another great example here, finding its range low over the last year, bouncing up from there as we are getting these relief rallies. But again, I do want to reiterate that if Bitcoin, continues to go up, which I think it will, it does something like this, goes to that 50-week moving average. If Bitcoin decides to roll over back here, again, depending when that is, if macro conditions aren't going to be good enough to really propulse the stock market and, liquidity and Bitcoin ultimately, and Bitcoin decides to roll over, well, your alts are likely also going to roll over. It's just the way it is for now. Now, of course, another chart you have to keep monitoring in this point in time is total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin. That gives you your altcoin pairs versus Bitcoin. And right now, we haven't really done anything, even though altcoin prices are up, because Bitcoin is also going up with it. So it's bringing the entire markets up right now. We are, just like I said, having this relief rally. The real ultimate test, in my opinion, is going to be in the upcoming weeks as Bitcoin gets closer to the $102,000 level. We have the FOMC meeting. I do think that, the interest rate cut that's happening likely already priced in. There's probably going to be some hype around it, but ultimately speaking, at this point, there's 90% chances of this happening. So it may already be priced in. And if you look at continuous narratives, as we are still in this uncertain time for what happens next to Bitcoin, what happens next to altcoins, as I said, there are plenty of different opportunities, and one of those opportunities presented themselves just over the last 24 hours. You look at what Walter Bloomberg mentions here. We have Trump administration shifts focus to robotics. We all know that Trump is heavily, bullish on artificial intelligence. They just announced a switch to robotics. As you can imagine, robotic plays in crypto did go up. Of course, it's a speculative trade, but there could be continuation on these trades. Looking at one robotic play that, we looked at, again, in our Discord, this is Sapien. It did go up roughly from, 11 cents all the way to almost 20 cents. So up roughly 50 to 100% in the span of, 24 hours. Another one that's done very well is Peak, which is, all about machines and RWA machines. Peak up 32% over the last days. So as I mentioned, there are always opportunities if you have your eyes peeled. One of the ways to keep your eyes peeled is by joining communities and staying up to date with what's happening in crypto. Right now, I remain bullish until otherwise. I do think liquidity conditions are going to bring the markets up, and it is, in my opinion, going to be a pivotal point when Bitcoin gets back to that 50-week moving average. With that being said, from now until then, we still have $10,000 to go for Bitcoin, so there is more upside in my opinion. That's all for today. Of course, nothing here is financial advice. Let me know what you guys think about this market. What is this relief we are seeing? Is it going to be continued with better liquidity conditions continuing, or is it just a bull trap? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm going to read them and see what you guys think. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, do me a favor, smash the like button. If you're new here, which about 70% of people watching are actually new, do me a solid, smash the like button, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.